Hello, and welcome to the Invisible Hand Show. Larry, author of the novel Invisible Hand, in which the concepts we espouse are illustrated, can't be with us tonight, but he should be back next week to chat with us here, in this hangout anyway, not here in my room. As always, we'd like to thank Mike Shanklin for developing the Voluntary Virtues Network and providing us with this platform in order to express our ideas and discuss them together. Tonight, we'll be discussing existing resources and abundance versus scarcity, as those things relate to the differences between our current POM or physical object money system and the new non-POM system we promote. The talking points I hope to cover are: 1, war wastes our resources; 2, undersea exploration; 3, space exploration; and 4, what do people have to gain from perpetuating a doctrine of scarcity? I see nobody's managed to join me yet, so I suppose I'll just start talking about the first of my 4 talking points. War. We all know that it takes a tremendous amount of money to keep wars going over and over throughout the years, throughout the centuries, and that it has been a primary motivator for governments to take taxation money and other resources away from the people in order to use them for this purpose. In some cases, it has been conquest. Mostly in the past, I guess it was conquest, but nowadays it all seems to just be a huge game devised to keep what we've come to know as a military-industrial complex rolling along, continuing to rake in huge profits while people die unnecessarily. And while you may think that this group of people or that group of people deserve to die, who has the right to make that determination? Does the child that's hit by a drone strike deserve to die? What did that child do? Was it his sin to be born in the wrong place at the wrong time? It just makes no sense. All of the resources that are devoted to war, if we were to be able to channel them to other purposes, there's really no limit to what we could accomplish. Hey, Louis, are you there? I see you. Well, I can see him, but I can't hear him yet. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to do something here.
Can you hear me now?
Do I need to click on you, maybe?
Can you hear me?
Can you talk to me now? No?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Well, I'm typing to him in the chat room to see if he's having a problem. Well, okay. I'm still here. There is no doubt that warfare takes more resources than it's really worth if you look at it from just about any practical standpoint. However, those who engage in warfare don't want anyone to look at the practical standpoint. In most cases, propaganda is used to drum up hatred towards those on the other side, which through accidental birth could have been you. none of us choose where we're going to be born or which parents we're going to have or what culture we're going to be born into. So the idea that those uh, differences should be held against us is really pretty ludicrous. Don't you think so? Are you there? Can you talk?
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can see your lips moving.
But you can't hear me. See.
No sound. Oh well. It's nice to have you here anyway. And, well, if we move on to the other talking points from that, what we would be able to do if we had all of the resources that are currently being squandered on warfare, we could perform exploration of our deepest oceans, which are still a complete mystery to us. And quite frankly, this is the 21st century. Why? Why, with all the technology we have in this day and age, have we still not managed to completely explore our own planet? Between submarines and drones and all of the other things that they have, it's just astonishing to imagine that this planet is still yet so vast that we haven't even uncovered all of its secrets yet. But there are those who would want us to believe that scarcity exists on a widespread basis. And that's just not true. The truth is, yes, scarcity is imposed in certain areas. And there are good reasons for that, which we'll come to in the fourth talking point. But the bottom line is, worldwide, there is no scarcity. In this huge, big planet of ours, we have everything we need and then some. But those who want to control those resources wouldn't want you to know that, because then you wouldn't want to pay as much for them, right? What can I say? I'm not in control of any of those resources. So all I can really remark upon is my own observations. The fact is, if you live in the middle of a big city, you're probably going to encounter scarcity because of just the sheer number of people that are competing for every little thing, from jobs to water, clean air, all of the different things that begin to dwindle. It's usually because of a large concentration of population. If you go out into the country, the primary thing that you'll notice in scarcity there is money. However, if you've been to many places that are exceptionally remote, you'll find that the people there don't really care much about money or really need it that much. In a lot of areas, they're completely self-sufficient, living off the land, have been for centuries, and would be offended if you suggested that they needed money to live. Does a bird need money to live? Does a kangaroo? A whale? Why are we the only creature on this planet that is convinced we need this stuff in order to run our world? And then you get to the point that Larry and I both agree upon, which differs from a few other philosophies, such as, say, the Venus Project, for example. We believe, yes, you do need to use money. Living in a completely moneyless society would eventually result in the whole world perpetuating the tragedy of the commons, which is to say that if nobody owns anything and nobody has to earn or pay for anything, nobody's going to bother with or take care of anything. So eventually it will all come crashing down. Like it or not, humans are a creature that appreciates and needs some sort of compensation or reward as motivation. The motivation that we receive varies, and yes, in rural areas and places where money is not as important or even a consideration, life does go on. People do have their systems and they work on a small scale. But those people all have their division of labor. They all do perform a duty or service to the group when they live together in groups. Even in a tribe, a remote and primitive tribe, one person is a healer, another person a hunter. There is never a situation where everyone does everything, or even more so, where everyone does nothing. It just doesn't and can't happen. If everyone did nothing, they'd all sit around and die. If everyone did everything, there would be no need for each other and people would live more solitary lives. Hermits are few and far between, whereas they would be much more common if we didn't have needs that require us to cooperate with one another. Can you talk yet? I
Can you
see
hear me?
you.
You got me on mute.
Are on.
I think you have me on mute.
No, I see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you talk. Oh, man. I wish I knew how to make this thing work. Let me see. Maybe I did something wrong in the toolbox. Let's see. How about if I do that? Will that work?
Can you hear me now?
Now? No?
No.
No. I turned you up. I found your away mode is off.
Can you hear me though?
I just don't know. Oh well. Again, we're still learning how to use Google Hangouts, so I'm sorry for all the goofiness. Let's get to the next talking point, which is space exploration. I mean, if we haven't explored our own planet's depths, what about outer space? What about, I mean, we're talking about going to Mars or back to the moon. We should have done that so long ago. Why are we not doing it till now? Back to the original. War. If we didn't have all these wars, do you know how far we would have explored by now? Do you know how much more advanced our civilization could be? But we hold ourselves back. And a large part of it, again, is based on propaganda, where we have governments and the military-industrial complex and whoever else stands to profit or gain from the war machine, pushing us to hate each other, to bomb each other, to distrust each other, to find reasons not to tolerate or accept or love one another. I mean, you don't have to be a religious person to understand that love is a much stronger and better motivation than hate will ever be. Love causes you to develop and build things and want to make things better for yourself, your family, and the people around you that you care about. Whereas hatred is the opposite. It causes people to tear down and destroy and kill. Why would we even want to listen to those who perpetuate a theory of hatred or exclusion, any kind of negative attitude towards people around us? All it does is make us miserable and sick and hopeless. And we need hope in this world, because without hope, people give up and they end up killing themselves, much less each other. I mean, it's just ridiculous how far the hatred goes and how deep it runs. And it only takes a tiny spark of it to get a raging flame going. But the same is true with love. A tiny little spark of love, it spreads, it warms your belly, it makes you want to help others, it makes you want to show others how good you feel, how happy you are, and make them feel good and happy too. No matter what emotion you're feeling, really, you know. So if you end up consumed by hatred and rage, eventually you can't see past that or outside of it anymore. And you close yourself off to all the possibilities. And that's just not the way any of us want or need to live our lives. Consciously, anyway. I mean, nobody says, oh, I want to hate. I want to be mean. Usually people who are hateful and mean didn't get that way all by themselves. They were bullied, they were otherwise mistreated, and in some cases, for years and even decades. I just can't even imagine how that might feel. And reaching people like that obviously is going to be a lot harder than reaching out to people who have grown up in the lap of love with hugs and kisses and grandmas and grandpas and cousins. We all have different life experiences that bring us to where we are and who we are. And someone who has been systematically stripped of their humanity eventually is stripped down to animal behavior, dog eat dog. You go out into the jungle, you're not going to reason with a tiger. Anyway, I would like to get to my last point, which is, what do people have to gain from perpetuating a doctrine of scarcity? They have a lot to gain, not just monetarily, but there are those who just thrive on controlling others, on being in charge. They get a thrill out of making plans and having other people fulfill them. And in some cases, there are really sick individuals who enjoy watching people die, who enjoy watching blood spray all over the place as people are slaughtered. Just look at the shows on TV. Look at what people watch. Personally, I can only take so much bloodshed in real life or on the screen. I tend to steer away from slasher films and horror stories, although I must admit that I do enjoy watching war and prison type productions where there's probably a good amount of fighting and bloodshed, but more out of fascination for the reality of it than interest in actually participating in that sort of behavior. And maybe that's why the slasher films and so forth are less interesting to me, primarily because they're more often fictitious, and I'm more interested in reality and what's behind people's behavior and what drives all of us to do what we do, as well as what is behind the things we fail to do, which for the most part is probably fear. We fear our own success as much as we fear failure. In fact, failure can be very comfortable and we can sink right down into it. But in this case, we're getting to the point where the whole world is going to fail if we don't all find a way to come together in a reasonable manner. And when it gets to the point that we've polluted the planet beyond our ability to survive on it, there won't be many of us left. There won't be much legacy left. My phone keeps going off. I'm so sorry. Well, I'm coming to the end of my time, and I'm really sorry that nobody else managed to come in here and chat with me tonight. I know Lewis gave it a valiant effort. Are you there? He's there. I can see him. I wish I knew sign language so we could talk. Maybe you should come into the chat room? Chat in the chat room? No? You can't see it? Oh well. Sooner or later, we'll learn how to do this right. And I hope I've brought up some good points tonight and given everybody some food for thought at the very least. I'm trying to get a little more organized with these chats and make them a bit less of a ramble, but it will be nice to have Larry back next week because he can really just talk and talk, and I love listening to him. I'm not so keen on listening to myself talk, but that's what it takes to keep the show rolling. Oh my. Well, I'd ask if you have anything to say to close out the show, but seriously though, I mean, the biggest point I'd like to get across is that don't let anybody tell you that there are any limits in this world, because there just are not. You might have a credit limit. You might have a limit on your own capacity to tolerate noise or perfume or a given, type of thing. But as far as limits on resources, they're finding new sources for those resources all the time. And many of them are hidden by those who are seeking to profit from driving up the price by telling you that it's scarce when it's really not. I've even heard, and I've never verified, but I heard that in Africa they were destroying diamonds simply to keep the price high. So anything is possible, but if you are living in a place where scarcity is the norm, get out of there if you can. Move. Go somewhere where you can experience a different atmosphere and a different set of values, cleaner air, healthier food. Because if you're living in the middle of a city like I am right now, which I won't be for very much longer, God willing, it does get harder. I mean, even here in the city, I have a mango tree, and every year I have lots of mangoes. There's no scarcity in that regard, except for the one year it didn't produce at all. You can find abundance if you look hard enough, just about anywhere. So just don't let anybody convince you that this idea of limited resources is factual. It's just not. Again, they want you to believe that because then they can charge more for all of it when they sell it to you. That's the primary reason that anyone tries to convince you of limits or scarcity. And I would stake my bottom dollar on that. Oh, we have 5 minutes left. Boy, this is tough just talking and talking on my own. But maybe someday I'll have a whole group of people lined up across the bottom of the screen taking turns putting in their 2 cents worth. If we can ever figure out how to work this Google Hangout. I guess I should try practicing a little more during the week, huh? I don't even know how to make Skype work right. Oh, I'm a terrible show host. But I hope you've enjoyed laughing at me, if nothing else, and I can laugh at myself, so. Yeah, what else is there to do? Well, it's Friday night. I could be out on the town. But why? I could go out tomorrow night. Seriously, though, I mean, before I close, I would like to say one thing about scarcity in my life. Until recently, I had a really hard time earning enough to keep afloat or to manage. But I have reached a point where now I can really kind of make as much as I feel like taking the time to earn. And it's really kind of exciting because it has moved me from a position of scarcity to a position of not yet real abundance financially, but hope. And I'm fairly confident that I'll be able to achieve my goals in a much more consistent manner moving forward. And of course, if you're interested in learning how to live your life that way, I'd be happy to talk to you. I'm not selling a program. I'm not in multi-level marketing or anything like that. I'll be happy to share with you how I went from feeling incapable of managing and surviving to having a system, if you will, that I can resort to, and also, well, really, it's just hope. It's hope. It's straight out, just plain old hope, faith, and belief that I can do what I need to do. And I will say also that when I start to get sick, which I have been many times over the past few years, the hope does start to dwindle every time. And as I get well and feel better, I feel like a roaring tiger, like I could take on the world. So it's always contingent on certain rules and regulations that you can't get past in that regard. But health is something that we can't live without. I mean, once we let our health slide, that's it. So if I could leave you with one last note tonight, it is, if you're young and strong, don't take it for granted. Exercise, eat right, and make sure that your health is at the top of your list of priorities. Because when you get to be older, it's a lot harder to achieve and maintain, particularly if you've let it slide. Well, I love all you guys for listening this long, and I appreciate you tuning in or trying to. And I'll be back next week, hopefully with Larry, same time, same place, Google Hangouts. It'll be a different URL, but bye-bye. Good night.